Jake slowly opened his eyes. He felt strange, as if he was floating. Bright lights shone above him, making it hard to see. He blinked a few times, trying to understand where he was. The last thing he remembered was hiking in the woods, enjoying the fresh air and the sounds of nature. But now he was somewhere else, somewhere very strange. As his vision cleared, he looked around. The room was not like any place he had seen before. The walls were smooth and shiny, and strange machines beeped and hummed all around him. Jake sat up slowly, feeling dizzy. He rubbed his head, trying to shake off the confusion. "What happened?" he whispered to himself. Suddenly, the door opened with a loud whoosh. Jake turned to see a group of aliens enter the room. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their skin was green and shiny, with large round eyes that seemed to glow. They were all laughing and talking excitedly in a strange language, pointing at him and making gestures. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. One of the aliens stepped forward. He was taller than the others, with a big head and a wide grin. "Look, the human is awake!" he exclaimed in broken English, struggling to pronounce the words. The others cheered, slapping each other on the back. They seemed proud of their catch. Jake took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside him. The aliens stopped laughing and looked at each other. They didn't understand his words but sensed his confusion. The tall alien pointed at Jake and said, "You! Strong human! Fun for us!" The other aliens nodded in agreement, their eyes wide with excitement. Jake realized they thought he was some kind of toy or entertainment. "Fun? You think I'm fun?" Jake replied, shaking his head. "I'm not a toy." He stood up, surprising himself with the boldness in his voice. The aliens seemed taken aback, unsure of how to react. They quickly gathered around him, their eyes glinting with mischief. One of them, a smaller alien with a crooked nose, stepped forward and spoke again. "We will test you! Show us strength!" Jake felt a mix of anger and fear. They wanted to use him for their amusement. But deep down, he knew he couldn't let them treat him like this. "What kind of test?" he asked, his heart racing. The tall alien laughed and pointed to a heavy metal object in the corner of the room. "Lift that! If you can, you are strong." Jake glanced at the object. It looked huge and heavy, much more than anything he had ever lifted. But he was determined to show them he was not weak. He walked over to the object, feeling the weight of their gazes on him. The aliens gathered closer, their eyes filled with anticipation. He gripped the object tightly, feeling the cold metal against his palms. Here goes nothing, he thought. He took a deep breath and pulled with all his might. At first, the object didn't move. The aliens giggled, thinking he would fail. But Jake pushed harder, using every bit of strength he had. Slowly, the object began to rise. The laughter stopped, replaced by gasps of shock. Jake could feel the weight pulling at him, but he refused to give up. He grunted and lifted it higher, finally managing to raise it above his head. The room fell silent. The aliens stared in disbelief, their mouths hanging open. Jake stood there, breathing heavily, feeling a mix of triumph and surprise himself. He had done it! "Strong human!" the tall alien shouted, breaking the silence. The others began to cheer, though Jake could sense a hint of fear in their voices. They had expected an easy win, but now they faced a human who was much stronger than they had imagined. Jake smiled, feeling a rush of confidence. He had shown them he was no ordinary human. But as he looked at their surprised faces, he knew this was just the beginning of his fight for freedom. The aliens gathered around Jake, their eyes still wide with shock and disbelief. They had never seen a human lift something so heavy. Their leader, the tall alien with the big grin, jumped up and down with excitement. "This human is strong! We must celebrate!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the room. The other aliens cheered and clapped their hands, their laughter filling the air. They rushed around, pushing buttons on their strange machines and making colorful lights flash all around. Jake watched, confused but intrigued. He had thought they would be angry, but instead they seemed thrilled by his strength. "Come! Come!" The tall alien beckoned to Jake. "You will join our games. We will show you our fun." Jake felt uneasy. He didn't know what kind of games they had in mind, but he wanted to stay strong. He followed the aliens into a large hall filled with strange equipment and odd-looking creatures. The walls were covered in bright colors, and strange music played in the background. In the center of the hall, there was a big platform. The aliens led Jake to it, still chattering excitedly in their odd language. They pointed at the platform and then at him. "You fight! You win!" they urged, their eyes sparkling with joy. Jake swallowed hard. "Fight? What do I fight?" he asked, feeling his stomach twist with anxiety. He hoped they were not going to bring out more fierce creatures. The tall alien laughed again as if Jake had told a joke. "Not creature, other humans," he said, waving his hands. "We have captured many. You are strongest." Jake's heart sank. He had no idea what these other humans were like or how they would react to him. He had to be careful. The aliens, still buzzing with excitement, began to prepare for the competition. They brought out other humans who looked just as confused as Jake felt. One by one, the aliens introduced the fighters. "This is Zara!" "She is strong," they announced, pointing at a girl with fierce eyes and a determined look. "And this is Kieran. He is fast." They cheered, encouraging the humans to show their skills. Jake could see that Zara and Kieran were not like him. They looked scared, unsure of what to do. Jake felt a sense of responsibility. He didn't want to hurt anyone, but he also couldn't let the aliens win. As the aliens continued to cheer, Jake stepped forward. "Wait," he called out. "We should work together. We can't let them treat us like this." Zara looked at him, her eyes shining with hope. "You're right. We have to find a way out of here." Kieran nodded, joining their side. The aliens noticed the change in energy. "No talking. Fight now!" they shouted, clapping their hands and jumping up and down. Jake felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew he had to keep the other humans safe. "Okay, let's show them what we can do," he encouraged. As the first match began, the aliens cheered loudly, waving their arms and shouting for their favorites. Jake stood back, watching closely. He saw Zara fight with skill and strength, using her speed to dodge attacks and counter the aliens' moves. Kieran was quick on his feet, surprising the aliens with his agility. But it soon became clear that the aliens were not just looking for a fair fight. They wanted entertainment. As the matches went on, they became more aggressive, pushing the humans harder and harder. Jake felt a fire ignite inside him. "No more!" he shouted. He stepped onto the platform, raising his hands to get the aliens' attention. "We won't fight against each other! If you want to fight, you'll have to face us all together." The aliens paused, surprised by his boldness. They exchanged confused glances, unsure of what to do next. The tall alien finally broke the silence. "Together? You think you can win against us?" Jake smiled, determination in his eyes. "Yes. If we work together, we can beat you. We're stronger as a team." The other humans looked at him, their fear starting to fade. They nodded, feeling the strength in unity. The aliens, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, began to look worried. With newfound hope, Jake and the other humans prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They knew they had to stay united, not just to survive, but to show the aliens they were not to be underestimated. The room was filled with excitement as the aliens debated what to do next. Jake stood at the center of the platform, his heart racing with determination. He could feel the eyes of the other humans on him, and he knew they were looking for hope. The tall alien, still brimming with confidence, finally made a decision. "First challenge! We will test your strength!" he declared, pointing at Jake and the other humans. The crowd of aliens cheered, their voices echoing in the strange hall. Jake took a deep breath. He could sense the tension in the air. He knew this was a crucial moment. If he could prove to the aliens that they were not weak, it might change everything. The tall alien gestured toward a heavy metal block sitting on the edge of the platform. "You must lift this! If you can lift it, you win the first challenge." Jake looked at the block. It was massive, much larger than anything he had ever lifted before. Doubt crept into his mind, but he quickly shook it off. He had to try. He nodded to the tall alien, stepping forward with determination. "Who goes first?" he asked, trying to sound confident. "Zara!" the tall alien shouted, pointing at the girl with fierce eyes. She stepped up, her face set with determination. The aliens cheered as Zara approached the metal block. She bent down, grasping it with both hands. She strained, pushing with all her might. For a moment, the block began to lift. The aliens gasped, but then it fell back down with a loud thud. Zara fell backward, looking frustrated and exhausted. "Not strong enough!" the tall alien laughed, pointing at her. The other aliens joined in the laughter, enjoying the show. Next, Kieran stepped up. He was smaller than Zara, but had quick movements. He crouched low, trying to get a good grip on the block. The aliens watched closely, eager to see if he could do better. He lifted the block slightly, but couldn't raise it very far. Soon he also fell back, panting and looking defeated. The aliens laughed even louder now. Jake felt a wave of anger rise in him. The aliens thought it was fun to humiliate them. He couldn't let this go on. "It's my turn," he called out, stepping forward. The aliens paused, surprised. "You think you can lift it?" the tall alien asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, I will show you," Jake replied, feeling a surge of determination. He approached the block, taking a deep breath. He bent down and gripped it firmly, feeling the cold metal against his palms. "Come on, Jake! You can do it!" Zara shouted from the sidelines. Kieran nodded, his eyes filled with hope. Jake focused on the challenge ahead. He imagined lifting the block, visualizing the strength flowing through him. With a powerful grunt, he pulled the block upward. It felt heavy, but he pushed through the strain. Slowly, the block began to rise. The aliens gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief. Jake could hear the cheers from the other humans. "Go, Jake! You've got this!" He grunted again, lifting the block higher and higher. Sweat poured down his face, but he refused to let it drop. Finally, with one last effort, he lifted it above his head. The room erupted in noise as the aliens stared in shock. Jake stood tall, the heavy block in his hands. He felt exhilarated and proud. "See? Humans are strong!" he shouted, his voice ringing with triumph. The tall alien's expression changed from surprise to anger. "This is not fair!" he shouted, waving his arms. "You are not supposed to win!" Jake lowered the block, breathing heavily but smiling. "We are not your toys. You can't treat us like this!" The other aliens murmured among themselves, unsure of how to react. Jake had turned the tables, and now they had to rethink their plan. The atmosphere shifted, fear and doubt spread among the aliens. Zara and Kieran rushed over to Jake, their eyes shining with pride. "You did it! You showed them!" Zara exclaimed, her voice full of excitement. Jake smiled at them, feeling a bond forming among the three of them. "We have to stick together. This is just the beginning," he said, looking back at the aliens, who were now watching him with a mix of fear and anger. The tall alien pointed at Jake, a fierce look in his eyes. "This is not over. You will regret this!" Jake met his gaze unafraid. "We'll see about that," he replied, feeling a surge of confidence. He knew they could face whatever came next, together. After Jake's impressive display of strength, the atmosphere in the alien hall was tense. The tall alien leader glared at him, his excitement fading into anger. "You think you can challenge us?" he shouted, his voice booming. "Very well. We will see how well you fight." The other aliens looked worried but also curious. They gathered around the platform, eager to see what would happen next. Jake felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew this was not just a test of strength, it was a test of everything he had. "Prepare for the fighting test!" the tall alien declared, pointing at Jake and the other humans. "You will fight against our best warriors." Jake glanced at Zara and Kieran, who looked anxious but ready. "We can do this. Just remember to watch each other's backs," he said, trying to calm their nerves. Suddenly, two massive aliens stepped onto the platform. They were much bigger than any of the others, with thick arms and sharp teeth. Their eyes glinted with excitement as they focused on Jake and his friends. "We will crush you!" one of the big aliens growled, flexing his muscles. The aliens around the platform cheered loudly, eager for a show. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" they chanted, their voices echoing through the hall. Jake's heart raced. He had never been in a real fight before, but he couldn't let his fear show. "Stay together! We can take them!" he shouted to Zara and Kieran. They nodded, forming a line in front of the two massive aliens. The tall alien waved his hand, signaling the start of the fight. The big aliens charged forward, their huge fists swinging. Jake reacted quickly, dodging to the side just in time. He could hear Zara and Kieran behind him, ready to help. Zara leapt forward, using her speed to get around one of the big aliens. She kicked at its legs, trying to knock it off balance. The alien stumbled but quickly regained its footing, roaring in anger. Kieran joined in, throwing punches and keeping the alien distracted. Jake knew he had to act. He saw an opening and dashed toward the other alien, using all his strength to deliver a solid punch to its stomach. The alien grunted and stumbled back, surprised by Jake's power. "Good job," Zara shouted, her voice full of encouragement. Jake felt a rush of confidence. He could do this! But the fight was far from over. The other alien recovered quickly and lunged at Jake, its claws swiping through the air. Jake ducked just in time, narrowly avoiding the attack. He knew he had to be smarter. Brute strength alone wouldn't win this battle. "Watch out!" Kieran yelled, rushing in to help. He tackled the alien, bringing it down to the ground. But the other alien was quick to retaliate, swinging its arm and knocking Kieran aside. "Stay focused!" Jake shouted. They needed to stick together. He looked at Zara, who was already moving to help Kieran. She pulled him back to his feet, and together they formed a barrier between the massive aliens and Jake. With renewed determination, Jake glanced around the platform, looking for anything he could use. His eyes fell on a long metal pole lying nearby. "I'll get that!" he shouted, running toward it. He grabbed the pole and felt its weight. It was heavy but manageable. Jake turned back to see Zara and Kieran holding their ground, but the big aliens were getting more aggressive. "Here!" Jake called, swinging the pole at the first alien. The alien raised its arm to block, but Jake struck hard, hitting the alien in the side. The creature let out a roar of pain, staggering back. "Great hit!" Zara cheered, her eyes shining with admiration. Kieran quickly joined in, using his agility to dodge attacks while Jake provided cover with the pole. Together they fought fiercely. Each swing of the pole knocked the aliens off balance, making it harder for them to strike back. But just when it seemed they were gaining the upper hand, the other alien recovered and charged forward. It tackled Jake, sending him crashing to the ground. The pole slipped from his hands, and for a moment he felt panic rise within him. "Jake!" Zara shouted, rushing to help him. Kieran was right behind her, ready to defend his friend. As the two aliens closed in, Jake took a deep breath. He couldn't let fear win. With one swift movement, he pushed himself up, ready to face the massive aliens again. "We can do this! Together!" he shouted, his voice ringing with determination. Zara and Kieran nodded, forming a united front once more. They were fighting for their freedom, and they wouldn't back down. This was only the beginning of their battle, but they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The fight raged on, but Jake and his friends were determined. They had come together as a team, and each of them was fighting with everything they had. The two massive aliens were strong, but the humans had something special, their unity. As Jake stood back up, he glanced at Zara and Kieran. They were both breathing hard, sweat dripping down their faces. But their eyes burned with resolve. "We can't give up!" Jake shouted, lifting the pole again. "Let's finish this!" Zara and Kieran nodded, ready to support him. They had already shown the aliens that humans were not weak. Now they needed to prove that they could win. The first alien charged again, its claws outstretched. But Jake was ready this time. He sidestepped quickly and swung the pole with all his might. It connected with the alien's leg, causing it to trip and fall. The alien hit the ground hard, letting out a frustrated roar. "Keep it up, Jake," Zara encouraged, her voice filled with excitement. But the other alien was still on its feet, and it was angry. It lunged at Kieran, who barely managed to dodge its attack. Jake saw his friend in danger and rushed over, swinging the pole again to distract the alien. "Get back!" he yelled, swinging the pole low to trip the alien. It stumbled back, giving Kieran a chance to regain his footing. With the alien momentarily distracted, Zara took her chance. She dashed in and landed a swift kick to its side, knocking it off balance. The alien growled in surprise, but it was too late. Kieran joined her, and together they pushed the alien back. Jake felt a surge of pride watching his friends fight. They had become a real team, each relying on the other. "We can win this," he shouted, his heart pounding with determination. But the fight was far from over. The first alien was back on its feet, and it charged again, eyes blazing with anger. Jake's mind raced as he thought of a way to stop it. He had to think fast. "Zara! Kieran! Distract it!" he yelled, pointing at the alien. Zara and Kieran immediately moved to the sides, trying to draw its attention. Jake took a deep breath and prepared himself. As the alien lunged at Zara, Jake seized the opportunity. He ran forward, raising the pole high above his head. With all his strength, he brought it down hard on the alien's back. The alien roared in pain and fell to the ground. Jake felt the rush of victory, but he knew they couldn't celebrate yet. The second alien was still on the loose. "Stay focused. We have to finish this!" he shouted, looking at his friends. They all nodded, eyes wide with determination. The remaining alien was furious. It charged at Jake with a wild roar. Jake raised the pole again, ready to defend himself. But this time, he felt a wave of fear wash over him. The alien was bigger, stronger, and angrier than ever. Just as the alien lunged, Zara and Kieran jumped in front of Jake. "Together!" they shouted in unison. In that moment, Jake realized something important. They had each other. No matter how tough the fight was, they were stronger together. "Now!" Jake yelled, and the three of them moved as one. Zara kicked the alien's legs while Kieran struck its face. Jake swung the pole, aiming for the alien's head. They hit it from all sides, working in perfect harmony. The alien staggered, confused and overwhelmed by their teamwork. Finally, with one last blow from Jake's pole, the alien fell to the ground, defeated. The hall fell silent. All the aliens watching were stunned, their cheers turning to gasps of disbelief. Jake, Zara, and Kieran stood together, breathing heavily but victorious. They had faced overwhelming odds and won against the aliens. The tall alien leader stepped forward, his expression a mix of shock and anger. "This cannot be," he shouted. "You are not supposed to win." Jake took a step forward, feeling a surge of confidence. "We are not your toys," he said firmly. "We are humans, and we will fight for our freedom." The other aliens murmured among themselves, unsure of how to react. They had come to laugh at the humans, but now they saw them as a real threat. As Jake and his friends stood tall, the atmosphere shifted. The aliens' confidence had turned to fear, and Jake knew this was just the beginning of their fight for freedom. "Let's show them what humans can do," he shouted, raising his arms in victory. Zara and Kieran cheered, their voices echoing in the hall. They were ready for whatever came next. Together they would face the challenges ahead, united as one. In that moment, they knew they had proven themselves. They were not just captives, they were warriors, and the aliens would never forget the day they underestimated humans.